I also think that the law is a tool of those in power, and it's corporations like BP that are in power right now. I mean, Glenn Greenwald wrote a great book called With Liberty and Justice for Some, about how we have a two-tiered justice system in this country. We don't really have a rule of law, we have two justice systems. And the division is not necessarily strictly between rich people and poor people. The division is between those that promote the concentration of power in the hands of the elite versus those that threaten to distribute that power or take away some of that power. And I think part of the mistake that a lot of people make is thinking that the law or words like legal are synonymous with moral or just. And that's not the case. I mean, most of our great examples of morality throughout history are people who broke the law.
That reminds me of a scene from the film. Take a look.
There's been a lot of historical influences from civil disobedience that have influenced me. And, most of them were preaching nonviolence. And this idea of nonviolence not meaning being soft, kind of a strong, peaceful resistance, and that power that comes through love.
It doesn't start so much as with a movement of thinking as a movement of the heart. The young people who saw segregated lunch counters in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1960, those 4 students ignited a movement that ultimately involved hundreds and thousands of people, because that movement of the heart touched the hearts of others.
The initial purpose of that revolution has to be a simple one.
The civil rights movement kind of introduced the whole notion of the possibility of making social change happen.
I think that's part of what my generation lacks, is that we haven't had these tangible examples of what it looks like when people take power and are committed to changing the system.
Dr. King said, if I can get 5%, I can change the situation. I only need 5%. It's never a matter of the majority. It's always a matter of conscience, and conscience only operates through an individual.
I was impressed with the statement you made in your hearing, your sentencing hearing. You said, I say this, what you just talked about, the conscience of the community and why you were doing what you were doing. I say this not because I want your mercy, but because I want you to join me. Is there evidence that people are signing up in sufficient numbers for similar acts of civil disobedience to reach some kind of critical mass?
Yeah, I think the numbers that it takes for civil disobedience, if people are actually committed to it, are not overwhelming majority numbers. I mean, for years there have been all these polls that say, only half of Americans are, believe climate change is happening, or only a third of them actually understand what climate change really is. Those sort of polls happen all the time, and they're generally presented in a kind of discouraging way. And I look at that and I say, well, that's plenty. That's that's more than enough. That a third of Americans who might understand this issue, that's 100 million people. That's more than enough to create change in this country, if those people are willing to actually act like they believe it. If these are the people that understand that our children's future is on the line right now, if they're willing to act like that, then we can create the change that we need to.